I was pressured into lying on behalf of Trump back when I was a Republican, and I refused to do it. And now I've opposed Trump, and you're trying to bully me.
Tim Miller of The Bulwark was a guest on Breaking Points with Krystal Ball to talk about how he went from Republican to never Trumper. It's always great when Krystal Ball and Tim Miller get together. We're going to take a look at this conversation between the two of them on Breaking Points. I will share my thoughts on this too. Let's check it out together.
All right, let's talk a little bit about you, Tim. So we can put your book jacket up on the screen, which I really recommend to people, wherever you are on the ideological spectrum. I think it gives a really great insight into like the very particular DC mindset of political operatives. The headline here is Why We Did It, Travelogue from the Republican Road to Hell. And you wrote this about, your own journey from being inside the belly of the beast in the Republican Party, working for Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, John Huntsman, working for some dark money groups as well, into being a very vocal Trump critic. So just sketch out for our audience who may not know all of your background, a little bit of like what you were up to and what it was about Trump that really, turned you off and made you into this very vocal critic.
Well, I appreciate that. I had some folks came to me to ask me to write a burn book, like Mean Girl style, about all the people I worked with in the Republican Party. And I was like, I was basically like, that wouldn't feel good unless I also like burned myself a bit on the, and so that was basically how the format for the book came out. I was like, I had to reflect on my own choices before I started, taking the fire torch to other people. And I was in Republican politics from the time I was a kid. Like my neighbor was a friend of a guy running for governor of Colorado, and I was just a political dork. I wanted to be in politics. I was 16 years old. I volunteered on that campaign. I looked like I was 12. I hadn't gone through puberty yet. Everybody asked me who my parents were when I was at the campaign office, and I was like, I don't know. My dad's working at his mutual fund. I was just kind of a precocious politics nerd. That guy won the governor's race in this very exciting, kind of close late night race, and I got very addicted to kind of the competition of politics.
Yeah.
And that was
almost like as a sport, right?
Yeah, like it was a sport. And so there were some earnest things we could talk about. Like there were some earnest things that drew me to the Republican Party over the Democratic Party. But like pretty quickly, I became just kind of like a hired gun, right? Like a hatchet man. I enjoyed the competition of it. And, I had some directional political beliefs. You just laid out the people I worked for. I worked mostly for the moderate Republicans. I have a few people that I worked for that are on my shame list that I did, because you have, if you're a political operative, sometimes you got to take clients, or you don't have to. Sometimes you choose to take clients in order to help yourself succeed. So, that was basically my background. And then Trump comes along. And honestly, it just was not a close call for me. And he was just so far beyond the pale. His rhetoric around immigrants in particular was, my red line. But like even, beyond that, like he just did not appeal to me in any possible sense of the word. He was antithetical to the earnest parts of why I became a Republican. And so, after Jeb lost, I got asked by some of those dark money guys you mentioned to be the spokesperson for a group opposing Trump. And I did it without really even thinking about the consequences, honestly. Jeb and my dad both said to me, like, you're being crazy. What if Trump wins? And I was like, screw it, whatever. He can't win. And so bad judgment there maybe by me.
Do you think if you had thought he was going to win, do you think you would have I
would have still done it. I was very much in kamikaze mode. I found Trump repellent. And so I always say that sometimes I get liberals will come up to me or Democrats, longtime Democrats, particularly like older mother figures, and they'll be like, I'm so proud of you. Like you did the right thing. And I'm like, I feel uncomfortable with that compliment because honestly, if it was Ted Cruz, I don't know. It would have been a closer call for me. Like I might have gone along with it. I don't know. My husband might have divorced me, so I might not have done it because of him. But Trump was something unique about Trump that I just thought everything about him, from his personal life to his ideology to the way he spoke about immigrants, the way he spoke about people, was just unacceptable to me. And so, so I dove in immediately. I was one of the OGs on the Never Trumper side. Yeah,
to be honest with you, some of what you just said in Trump 1.0, I would have been a little resistant to, like the idea that he was this particularly unique threat. And then it wasn't just sort of like, revulsion at, the norms and, he's uncouth and whatever. But in this way, I also think I've politically evolved recently to feel like, the liberals who were like really concerned about the norms and really concerned about the rhetoric and really concerned about his character, they had a point. They had a point. Like the most deranged Trump derangement syndrome person ends up looking like they were kind of mild. Yeah, in comparison to what has unfolded. And, I was really raising an alarm in advance of this election. I thought because I thought that he would be in basically YOLO mode. The Supreme Court had given him complete and total immunity, effectively. And they had spent 4 years trying to figure out how to move out of the way any even moderate guardrail that had kept him even somewhat hemmed in the first administration. And even I have been horrified and shocked by the speed of the dissent in this particular administration. So, I certainly have also tried to learn from what has unfolded and, evolve in my own political views. Let me ask you to respond to what the haters would say.
Before Tim Miller gets into the next part here, I wanted to just first of all say, we need a lot more people like Tim Miller. There are never Trumpers out there, people who are former Republicans like Tim Miller who are now openly speaking out against Trump and have been speaking out against Trump for quite a while, but we need more of them. And we also have a lot of old school Republicans. I have quite a few people like this in my own life who they don't really have a party anymore because they can't stand Trump, but they can't quite go to the left or being a Democrat, and there's really no home for them. And the thing to me that is almost the most disheartening about all of this is the people that I know who are old school Republicans and people who are principled in a lot of ways, and they've fallen into this MAGA trap too, where it's like things that they believed 5 minutes ago, they no longer believe, or they've turned on a dime just because of Donald Trump. I think of on the opposite end of the spectrum, I like Bernie Sanders. But if all of a sudden Bernie Sanders came out and was saying, what I love is billionaires and what a great guy Elon Musk is, and we've got to suck up to all of the super, super rich people and to hell with Medicare for all and all of that. I would be like, hey, Bernie Sanders has lost his mind. This is absolutely wrong. But with MAGA, something could have been their strongly held belief for decades, and Donald Trump says the opposite, and they are completely on board with him. It's just insane. I mean, I make the joke all the time about all the friends that I had growing up who loved Top Gun and all of these movies, Rocky IV, America versus Russia, and now these people will openly talk about how great they think Putin is, which is just insane to me.
About you, which is that you previously, you were doing what you needed to do and saying what you needed to say in order to serve the Republican side and your Republican bosses. And now, are you just doing the same thing to serve, your liberal audience and to appeal to the MSNBC folks that you're speaking to on a regular basis?
I love talking to the haters. That's fine. No, I mean, look, just on the money side of things, not that I'm doing great, I'm fine, but like the amount of money the people around Trump are making right now is going to shock the conscience. I mean, like Jason Miller also opposed Trump, like me. Initially, he was with Ted Cruz. I was with Jeb, but
I forgot that, actually.
I hung out with Jason Miller, and he opposed Trump, so did Kellyanne. And Jason Miller just got a contract from India that's like $100,000 a month or something, or I forgot, I don't have it in front of me, $150,000 a month maybe. And so, I'm not bringing in that much on YouTube. I'm telling you, we're doing okay. And so I'm not looking for sympathy, but like the way to do well in the Trump Republican Party was to stay. And a lot of my friends have expanded their houses. A lot of my former friends have expanded their houses. Yeah. So, there's that. I hear what you're saying. And I think, look, anybody that is in the business of talking about the news, I'm sure you guys think about this. We, especially in this day and age, you see what your audience likes and doesn't like, even if you don't read the comments, you see it in the metrics, right? Mm-hmm. And so I understand that people would be skeptical of all this, but I try my very best to just say what I want, what I think, and like only care about what I care about and not be pretend outraged about things I'm not outraged about. And, and during the campaign in 2024, people were very upset at us over our thoughts about Joe Biden, which maybe we can talk about in a second. Yeah. I was horrified by Joe Biden, and the Bulwark audience is pretty Biden-y, center left folks. So there are a lot of big Biden fans. To the extent the big Biden fans exist, a lot of them were Bulwark consumers.
The Biden super fan.
And a lot of them were unhappy.
Overlap.
A lot of them were unhappy with my views on him, and I didn't move an inch. If anything, it radicalized me more because I was like, "Screw you guys!" I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you seeing this?" You're like, I was pressured into lying on behalf of Trump back when I was a Republican, and I refused to do it. And now I've opposed Trump, and you're trying to bully me into, arguing, trying to tell people that to not believe their lying eyes about Joe Biden. No, I'm not going to do that. So, look, I think that we're doing the best we can to give people what we honestly think every day. I think that there's no doubt in the YouTube game, this, sometimes that the little thumbnail has to be a little more crazy than be but that's just like part of doing all this. And so, I think that there's a little bit of that, and that's probably a fair criticism for my haters, but no, I'm not I'm not changing my views on it.
To push back just a little bit on Tim Miller, I like Tim Miller a lot. I like Krystal Ball a lot. And Tim Miller seems very sincere. That said, we act as if Donald Trump is a unique threat, and he is a unique threat in a lot of ways. We've not really seen someone as just openly corrupt as Donald Trump. You know, we've had corruption in both parties for a long, long time, maybe forever. But they at least tried to hide it a little bit, whereas Donald Trump is just so openly corrupt. But it's not like Donald Trump is completely new either. A lot of what Donald Trump is saying and doing goes all the way back to the 1990s. Newt Gingrich was starting a lot. It really started a lot of all this, that the Democrats are evil, and for Republicans to just pound on that over and over and over again, that we're not going to work with the Democrats and they're evil and blah, 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 blah. And all the indictments of Bill Clinton that came from that era of the Republicans. So this has been going on for a long time. So I don't know a lot about Tim Miller prior to his work on the Bulwark, but based on what he was saying here, you know, he was propping up some pretty bad characters. He said that if Ted Cruz had been in the position of Donald Trump, he didn't know that he couldn't support Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz is a loathsome figure. I would think anybody who's interested in this channel does not like Ted Cruz. So it's not like Ted Cruz is a whole lot better than Donald Trump. So that is one area where I would push back on Tim Miller a bit. Now, he's had this conversion, which is great, and I hope that we will see, you know, he never really was MAGA, but some old school Republicans that have gotten sucked into MAGA, I would hope that we would see more and more conversions like Tim Miller has had as things get worse and worse in Donald Trump 2.0. But let me know what you think about all this. I only showed you about half of this. If you want to go to the Bulwark's channel, you can watch this entire conversation between Krystal Ball and Tim Miller. It's very interesting and very enlightening. But let me know what you think about all this. Do you feel that Tim Miller is sincere in what he's saying here? And do you think we need more people, more never-Trumpers like Tim Miller, to be joining the fight against Donald Trump? Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.